My books have done reasonably well, but I definitely have regrets about when I was writing them. My name's Sam and I'm a romance author based in the UK. And today I want to share 3 of those biggest regrets with you and also what I do now to avoid those mistakes in the future. The first mistake I want to talk about is plotting out my books in too much detail. Now this is going to be a slightly subjective one because some people do really well with plotting their books out in as much detail as possible beforehand. But for a lot of people, myself included, this can create a lot of problems during the drafting stage. And the reason for this is because you're creatively and intellectually fulfilled by having solved the puzzle. When you plot out a book in great detail, you're answering all of those questions that as a writer kind of motivates you forward through the story. You're asking the question, what would happen if this particular character were in this particular situation? And through the outlining process, you're answering that. So yes, there's always a little bit of interest in the writing process in terms of the setting and the behaviors and the exact dialogue. But for me, that's not actually enough to motivate me consistently through the story. When I was writing my first 2 books, I plotted things out in such great detail that it became really, really difficult to force myself to sit down and flesh that outline out into prose. Now, of course, there are ways around this. You can outline, but not in a lot of detail, so it gives you a lot more flexibility in terms of how to get from A to B. But I've actually found that overcorrecting has worked for me and isn't in fact an overcorrection. What I'm now doing is just like full-on discovery writing. Now, does that mean that I have a lot more editing to do? Yes, it does. But that editing is almost more rewarding because I've worked really hard for it. I've told myself the story in full detail the first time around, and then I can go back and edit it. Whereas when you're doing a really heavy outline, you've already told yourself the story. So don't make the same mistake that I did. Make sure that as you're outlining, you're thinking to yourself, have I still given myself enough to keep me moving forward through the writing process here? Check in with yourself and be honest about whether or not you're still interested in writing something. The second biggest mistake that I made with my books was taking a binge writing approach. I love, as much as the next person, hearing these stories about people who like write 20,000 words in a day. It's ridiculous and amazing. And I'm not gonna lie, when you do it, there is a massive sense of achievement. But you know what else there is? There's a hangover. You might then go days or weeks or sometimes even months without feeling like you're able to tap back into it. And you create this binge and restrict cycle where you're binging on it, and then because you've binged on it, you don't feel like you have the energy for it for a long time, and you tell yourself, oh, if I'm gonna do it, I need to do a really large quantity. You don't practice moderation with your writing, and what that means is it not only makes it a lot harder to hit deadlines and write at a cadence that creates a consistent output, but it also creates a lot of shame around your writing. And I remember with my second book in particular, we went through a lot in the year before and then first year of COVID, and it was really difficult to find time for writing and to find motivation for writing. And because I was in that sort of binge and restrict cycle with my writing, I felt a lot of shame about that. I never had the mental energy to hit those high word count days, but because that's what I was used to doing, I didn't feel like it was worth writing if I wasn't gonna write at that volume. What I've done now instead is I've created a habit of writing smaller quantities, but more frequently. Now, I still write really quickly compared to a lot of people. So I'll write for an hour or 2 hours a day, and I'll write between 1,500 and 2,000 words. The point is creating a really consistent routine that works for you and limits the amount of time that you are spending writing. I won't let myself binge write anymore. I don't want to hit 5,000 words in a day because then it becomes easier to bargain with myself the following day and the day after that and the day after that of, oh, well, it's fine. I hit 5,000 words a few days ago, so I don't need to write today. I'll catch up at the weekend. And then you instantly enter back into that binge and restrict cycle. And I'm trying desperately to avoid that by making sure that I'm nourishing my writing routine more consistently. And you can do the same. It doesn't have to be 2 hours a day, it might be 30 minutes a day, but limit yourself to that 30 minutes. Set a timer, join a sprint, whatever it is to containerize the writing portion of your day and make it as close to a daily habit as possible. I hate the hustle culture, no days off mentality, but when it comes to creating a consistent habit, if you think of it like brushing your teeth, you don't take days off from brushing your teeth. And there's so many additional benefits that writing will bring to your life other than just a creative output that it is worth taking the time every day where possible. Doing it every single normal day, including weekends if you can, is a really good way to ensure a long-term consistent output in addition to feeling creatively nourished. And I really wish that I'd done that with my first 2 books, and I'm working really hard to do it now because I'm so much happier as a writer as a result. The last regret that I want to share with you is that I absolutely gave my book to the wrong beta readers. I had 2 primary beta readers, which were my mother and one of my friends. And love my mother. She's not a great beta reader for me because she always likes what I do. She likes the story, and it's because she loves me and she loves my brain, and therefore she loves the things that come out of it. The first draft of my first book, reading it back, God, it was terrible. And she can look at that and look at the final draft and see that the final draft is better. But when she read it to begin with, she was like, I love it. And that's not really helpful for you when you're at the beta reading stage. I mean, if you need your mom to read your work and tell you that it's good, absolutely do that. But don't count that as a beta reader, and don't count that critique as necessarily a valuable one. My friend that I gave my books to was kind of similar to that in the sense that I would have to ask really leading questions to try to understand what she actually thought about the book. So I'd have to say, oh, well, how did you feel about this? Or how did you feel about this? And it meant that I wasn't really getting anything additional from her that I hadn't already thought of myself. And one of the biggest values of beta readers is that they're not you. And the beta reader is then going to turn around and be a completely different perspective. And they're going to tell you, oh, I really thought that this was going to happen, and then it didn't. And I was kind of disappointed, but kind of okay with it. And you can take that information and decide what to do with it. Whereas if you're having to talk to your beta reader and say, oh, well, what did you think of this specific thing? You kind of already know that there's something there to unpack. Not to say that I didn't get to some good conclusions talking to my friend about that, but it was almost just using her more as a sounding board than anything else. And I don't think that's where the real value of beta readers lies. Now, I was lucky enough that my mother and my friend, the beta readers that I had, are people who do like to read in the genre that I write. But I do know people who have tried to give their book to beta readers who don't normally read in their genre, and that's nonsense as well. Definitely don't do that. You want to know that they're going to give you good critique, but they need to do it with an awareness and context of the genre that you're writing in. And that's why writing groups are such a great place for you to find beta readers, because you're going to have so many different people of lots of different reading tastes all in one place. So look online for some good writing groups to find your beta readers rather than turning by default to your friends and family, because they're going to be more objective with you. They're going to be more likely to provide good, valuable input, and they're less likely to tell you that it's great just because they gave birth to you. But if you can learn now what I had to learn along the way, it'll all be worth it. So go do better than I did, and don't forget to subscribe so that you don't miss any of the writing vlogs where I'm going through what I'm doing now to avoid those same mistakes. Thanks so much, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.